Hey, what's up? Welcome to Flatirons. We're so glad that you guys are here. Right now we're going through our series, The Trail, where we are looking at where we are at as a church and where we are going as a church. If you have any questions about Flatirons, if you want to see what we've done week after week after week, head to flatirons.church.com where you can watch everything that we have done. We are so glad that you guys are here.
Hey, good morning, Flatirons. So great to see you here. Let's stand together. Sing us out this morning. I was buried beneath my shame. Who could carry that kind of weight? It was my tomb till I met you. I was breathing but not alive. In all my failures I tried to hide. It was my due till I met you. Let's hear you sing it out this morning. You called my name and I ran out of that grave. Let's lift our voices together, sing this out. I needed rescue, my sin was heavy, but chains break at the weight of your glory. I needed shelter, I was an orphan, but you called me a citizen of heaven. When I was broken, you were my healing. Now your love is the air that I'm breathing. My eyes are open, 'cause when you call my name, I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness, into your glorious day. You called my name, and I ran out of that grave.
overthrow, still your love fought for me. You have been so, so good to me. Yes, you have, Lord. When I felt no worth, you paid it all for me. Yes, you did. You have been so, so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God.
Shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Sing it out. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Shout it out. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, no lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God.
Hey, Flatirons, how you guys doing this morning? So awesome to be here with all of you. You just take a second and say hi to somebody around you, shake somebody's hand, and then you can have a seat.
Going too fast to prepare for this. Tripping in the world could be dangerous. Everybody circling as vultures. Negative, nepotist. Everybody waiting for the fall of man. Everybody praying for the end of times. Everybody hoping they could be the one. I was born to run, I was born for this. Whip, pull me like a racehorse. Pull me like a ripcord. Break me down and build me up. I wanna be the slip. Put upon your lip. Better that you rip. Break me down and build me up. Whatever it takes. Because I love the adrenaline in my veins. Whatever it takes. Because I love how it feels when I break the chains. Whatever it takes. Take me to the top, I'm ready for whatever it takes. chance to be a part of them. Never be enough for the prodigal son. I was born to run, I was born for this. Whip, pull me like a racehorse, pull me like a ripcord, break me down and build me up. I wanna be the slip, pull up on your lip, better that you rip, break me down and build me up. Whatever it takes, 'cause I love the adrenaline in my veins. I'll do whatever it takes, 'cause I love how it feels when I break the chains. Whatever it takes, take me to the top, I'll pay for whatever it takes, 'cause I love the adrenaline in my veins. Do what it takes. Critical, egotistical, don't wanna be the parenthetical, hypothetical, working on something that I'm proud of. Out of the box and a box to the world and the vision we lost, and then apostrophe. I'm just a symbol to remind you that there's more to see. I'm just a product of the system of catastrophe, and yet a masterpiece, and yet I'm half deceased. And when I am deceased, at least I go down to the grave and die happily. Leave a body of my soul to be a part of me. I do what it takes, whatever it takes, 'cause I love the adrenaline in my veins. I'll do whatever it takes, 'cause I love how it feels when I break the chains. Whatever it takes, take me to the top, I'm ready for whatever it takes, 'cause I love the adrenaline in my veins. I do what it takes.
Hey Flatirons, for you who are new over the last month, my name's Jim. I'm the lead pastor here at Flatirons. I've been gone the last 5 weekends, taking a little bit of vacation time, but also being on a study break and prayer break up in the mountains, and then leading a couple of retreats. I'm back though, starting next week, and I'm really excited about something that's happening over the next 3 weeks. Today we're going to kick off a brand new series called The Trail. Let me kind of give you the vision of this trail. So compare your life like to a trail, and a trail is made up of different steps, right? You take steps and you're trying to go from one place to another place, but along the way you encounter things, and you make left hand and right hand turns, and then you encounter things that you didn't see, but from that point on the trail is different, and life's like that. It's true for us as men and women as we go through different intersections of life. It's also true for as a church, and over the next 3 weeks we're going to be looking at that. Next week I'm going to be back teaching about what this Flatirons trail, where we've been and where we are right now, and where I really believe, more than believe, convicted that God has in mind for this church, walking into this next season. So I hope you come back next week and hear kind of the trail that Flatirons is on. Then the following week, one of my best friends, and now has become just a good friend of Flatirons, James Henderson, who's one of our missionary partners down in Mexico City. He's coming up here for several different retreats that he's leading, but also he's going to be available to us the following weekend to come and teach about what the trail he's been on with God, past, present, and future, looks like for a man who's just trying to run after God. So that's 2 weeks from now. But this weekend I'm really excited, because at all of our campuses, and if I'm not at your campus, I'm probably at another campus, because I want to witness all this. But for the first time this weekend, we have invited all of our campus pastors, individual campus pastors, to teach and share kind of their story or their trail that they've been on with God over the past, what God has been teaching them over this last season of their life, and what that means for them as a husband, as a father, as a friend, right? As a man, but also as how they're leading their campus out of what God is teaching them. So I'm going to try to hit all the campuses this weekend, probably sneak in the back, and then I'll be back next week, and then James will be here. But I am so excited. I've had a chance to read through every one of their talks, and I don't know if I'll let them do it again, because what they're about to teach you, it's pretty amazing. And so I'll be back next week, but right now, will you just take a second and welcome your campus pastor to the stage? Here they go.
Thanks. Hi, Flatirons. How we doing? We feel good? Awesome. I feel awesome. I have like 5 cups of coffee. It's great. And also Tommy's song got me all pumped up. I love Tommy. I used to do youth ministry with Tommy, and every week I would go and like say, sing this song this week. And he'd be like, this has nothing to do with what you're talking about. I'm confused. He'd be like, Tommy, shut up and sing to me, okay? I love him. He's the best. Guys, I'm so excited to be up here. I'm not going to lie, for 8 years, I kind of dreamed of having the opportunity to be up here and do this for a couple of reasons. I love to teach, and I love this campus. I love our church. But I also just respect this spot on the stage so much. The stuff that I've learned and been taught from all of our teachers right here over the years. So I'm going to do my absolute best to honor that this morning. So thanks for being so gracious to me. I really do love Flatirons. I want to talk about that for a couple of reasons. There's a lot of reasons I love Flatirons. But real quick, to get you guys kind of steeped in who's up here. My name is Zach. I've been the campus pastor here since October, so for 8 or 9 months, somewhere in that range. And I've been at Flatirons since about 2011. I went to high school down in Littleton, and I have a couple of degrees from UNC up in Greeley. And if you don't know about this, UNC is where the finest minds of our generation were educated. So, yeah. And the old axiom is true. UNC really is the Harvard of Greeley. So, yeah. So I'm proud to be from an institution like that. I'm 40. I just turned 40 a couple months ago, and people are like, man, you don't look older than 39. But I know. It's amazing. It's all the easy living. I've been married to my wife, Josie, for 15 years. We have 3 kids. Our kids are awesome. Some of their hobbies include fighting, so that's pretty great. They love Marvel movies. My daughter down here is a chef. She's a little cook. She's awesome. And we love sports, so we love cheering for our teams. And our teams, 2 of them I won't mention because I want you guys to like me. And then I'm also borderline obsessed with the Nuggets. I just love them so much. We love the Avalanche at our house. My son, my little guy's a hockey player. He loves Nathan McKinnon. If you guys have connections, hook me up. And we cheer for the CU Buffs. Go Buffs, come on. We love them. So that's my family. I asked my wife for some options on pictures, and I picked the one that I look skinniest in. It was not easy to find one. So that's Zane with my hand on him. Emerson's in the middle, and our little guy's name is Smith, and I obviously love them so much. So, like I said, I was hired in 2011 as the middle school pastor here at Flatirons. I interviewed for about 6 months, and I didn't know if they just had like a really stringent process. They're just really careful. But it turns out that they weren't real sure they wanted to hire me. And I didn't know what it was. Maybe my jokes. It was probably my jokes. And eventually I won them over, and I came in here in March of 2011. So I was in youth ministry for 20 years, which it's just crazy, between here and my old churches. And I never really pictured that I would leave youth ministry, to be honest with you. But something kind of crazy happened. As I was getting older and stuff like that, I started feeling like my heart was being tugged a little bit away from it. And it was crazy because I came here in 2011. By 2012, I was kind of overseeing high school and middle school. We went through some really tough culture things, and we had a really healthy team. Our youth groups were growing. There was more and more kids coming. Stuff was going really, really well. The team is incredible. Most of them are still here doing that over there. They're my best friends. I love them. But I don't know what it was, but God was just hinting at me that my time was almost up. And I think it was when I was talking to Lindsay. And if you know Lindsay, she's our director of youth over there now. She's incredible. I love her. But she was talking to me, and she was using so many acronyms and abbreviations. I had no idea what she was talking about. And I kind of thought, man, I think I'm missing a lot of what the kids are saying to me too, because I don't know what's going on. So I started investigating that, and it turned out that God was saying TTYL to youth ministry for me, which I just found out means talk to you later. So I started moving on in my heart that something new was coming for me. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, I was terrified, really scared. I was worried about my job, about my future, because honestly, the youth pastor's skill set doesn't transfer to too many other things. And as a matter of fact, I can't think of anything for sure that it transfers to. So I came up with a couple things that I wish it would. Male modeling in the NBA, but it doesn't seem like it's going to happen. So that's where I was. And luckily that same week, Jim came to me and he asked me, would you be willing to plant our 3rd campus down in Denver? And so I took a really scary step for me, and I left that job that I loved, and I led a team of really incredible people downtown to do that. And in that season, it was October of 2015 now, which I can't believe is right, but that's right. There were really great days, and there were really bad days. There were really tough days. But I'd say this, I learned more about this job that we call working at a church and really honestly about myself, good and bad things about myself, than any other season of my life during that. But I also learned this. I learned a ton about this church that we call Flatirons. And the main reason I love Flatirons really comes out of this. I was about 15 years into this career, if you want to call it that, as a youth pastor when I was hired here at Flatirons. And guys, it was a Hail Mary for my family. I limped into this job, and I didn't tell them that interviewing because I'm not dumb, but I was limping. And the reason was because I was so beaten up by the church, by church people over that course of that 15 years. And I finally decided at my last church down in Monument that I still love those people. I decided I had to go because I couldn't do another elder meeting. And if you're not familiar with elder meetings, you haven't been around the church long, they're so good here, and our elders are so wonderful. The first time they asked me for coffee, one of them, I was terrified, but they're wonderful. My other church wasn't like that. And I couldn't do another elder meeting where I got raked over the coals for literally being $20 over budget on a missions trip. 150 high school kids went on this trip, and they didn't say, what did God do? What did you experience? What was it like? They just said, where's our $20? And I couldn't do that again. Or I worked at another church where I was told that pastors aren't supposed to tell jokes and that I was watering down the Bible by trying to be funny. I still remember it really perfectly. And if you've been around here even for a week, you know that they probably didn't like me very much. But I still remember it perfectly. It was 1999, so most of you weren't born. But it was 1999. It was a wonderful time of life that you missed out on. But I just made this killer Backstreet Boys joke, guys. It was insane. It maybe was worth it. But I was told that we don't do that kind of stuff here, and they eventually showed me the door. So we came here in 2010. We were still across the street at the time, and I saw Jim, right? I came in and I watched Jim, and I had never laughed that much in church in my entire life. And when I left, I also realized I don't think I'd ever been taught that much at the same time. And so I told Josie, we left after we visited, and I told her, I said, if Flatirons means what it said to us in this interview, they really mean it, then this is the perfect place for us. And if they don't, then I'm done working at churches. And here's what they told me. They told me that you guys, that Flatirons, us, that we are a safe place full of lost and broken people. And that we, the staff and the people in these seats, are lost and broken people. And let me unpack that a little bit. Our staff believes in Jesus. We don't hire people that don't, because that would be insane. But we're not lost in that sense. But we do make mistakes. Sometimes we do tell jokes that as they're leaving our mouth, we can't believe we just said them, guilty of that, but we still do. We sometimes, for me, for sure, I'm lost in my parenting or my marriage or whatever that might look like. And like many of you, we have broken relationships that we're just trying to figure out. Say we're real and we're honest, and we're trying to figure out how to follow God in the midst of putting each one of us back together. I'm proud of that. I'm proud of this church for that. Because while we're far from perfect, and I meet people from other churches all the time that go, oh, Flatirons, I don't know if I think you guys are sincere or agree with what you do, and that's okay, because I really believe that this church is. This church provides a safe place for those that are honest enough to admit that they need help, to seek God's help. And you can sit in the front row, the corners of the balcony, you can go into the shadows, whatever you want to do. You can sing along to the worship songs or to Imagine Dragons or whatever that might look like on a given week. And you can ask God to do something with your brokenness. And here's the thing that's crazy to me as I stand out there in the lobby and have conversation after conversation, is that God keeps doing it. Over and over again, he keeps healing the deepest wounds in our hearts of those of us who sit here every week and just ask him to show up. And I'll tell you guys this too. I'm super proud to raise my kids in a church that doesn't make God weird, right? And doesn't teach them to turn their brains off and just listen. I'm super proud of that. And I'm proud to be part of an incredible team of people that gets together every week and says, what can we do this week to reach broken people? So here in Lafayette, we've taken these steps to become a campus like our other locations. And I'm excited for that for a lot of reasons. But one of my favorite things about that is this next season, here in about a month, we're going to launch these small group communities that give us a chance to grow in a circle of people who can look at us and say, me too. I love that here in Lafayette, we work with amazing local partners, Sister Carmen Community Center, Sanchez Elementary, Thrive Work Transformation, a bunch of other people that I just think are absolutely the best of the best. Some of those people, most of those people that we touch through that will never walk into this place. But this community and this city matters to us, and I love that. I love the incredible volunteers, all of you that we have, that every week. And I was over at Starbucks this morning. I met a guy who just got off of work. He worked overnight, and he's like, I'm going to go greet at the front doors. And I was blown away by that. That's crazy to me. All I would want is a nap, And he's just coming here and giving that time. Our volunteers and our staff and guest services and facilities and production that create environments like nobody else. Our kids ministry that's literally changing families. Student ministry that's teaching teens and preteens how to have an identity as Christians. And Shift on Friday nights. Our recovery program, that's the ER, the operating room, the recovery unit of that metaphor of the church being a place for sick people. This place is the best, and it's because of you guys, and I love that. I'm super proud to play a small part of that, and so Lafayette, I just want to say thank you for these last 8 or 9 months and accepting me into this role that we've never had before and trying to figure it out with me, so yeah. All right. Now I get to give a sermon, so let's go. Today, so Jim came to me and he talked about this idea of the trail, and he said, I just want you to talk about the trail, this metaphor, and I just want to talk about one thing. It just immediately came to my mind. I want to talk today about hope and fear. Hope and fear. Because here's what I really believe about every one of us in this room. I believe that we live in this constant state of flux between two things. One, being hopeful that life is really good, that things are going to be okay, and maybe even that God is with us, right? And Jesus is with us and he's right there. And on the other side, fearful despair, that life is caving in around us and we're going to collapse under the weight of our problems and our decisions. So I know some of you like me in 2010, I know some of you limped in here today. And maybe it's your last chance. You're like, this is my last chance for God. This is it. And maybe that's because you lost something or someone that's most important to you. Or maybe you just really keep having horrible things happen and you can't believe it. You really believe that none of it's your fault and it just keeps stacking up on you. Life just keeps hitting you and decking you. I want you to know, for these 30 minutes that I'm up here, that even though I'm a church employee, I'm not here to trick you into anything. And I'm not even here to change your mind, because that's above my pay grade. I just want to do this. I just want to talk about that struggle between hope and fear, and maybe rethink the way we interact with both sides of it. So when Jim told me this idea of the trail, he just said, talk about what God's been up into your life lately. Like, what's he been up to? What's he teaching you? What's he doing? And it scared me. Like, it's terrifying. You don't want to know some of the stuff up here. But I immediately thought of probably my favorite verse in the entire Bible. There's a good chance that you've heard it because it's super famous. It's on coffee cups. Your grandma had a cross stitch up in her house of it probably. It's on t-shirts that are over on the thrift store racks, and they used to be white, but now they're yellow. But it's super, super famous. It's written by a king named Solomon. And Solomon was regarded as the smartest, wisest man in the world. He was like Alex Trebek. He had all the answers. But Solomon also had 700 wives and 300 concubines, which doesn't sound super smart. And I can't really totally imagine it. I was thinking about this, and I think the only thing that sounds scarier to me than that is being a woman having to deal with 1,000 men. So I can't imagine what that would be like. But Solomon, I said to Jim, I think Solomon made some mistakes. And Jim goes, I can think of 999. So yeah. Solomon, I would imagine, knew what it was like to go through tough times, to make bad decisions, and to try to figure out what it looks like to get back. So he wrote this proverb. It's Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Like I said, it's super famous, and it says this: trust in the Lord with all of your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight. So most of us have heard that, but I want to break this down a little bit into little pieces, because this was written originally in Hebrew. And so our English translation, we miss a lot of the nuances of the words that were used to write it originally. There's way more behind most of these words. So for instance, the very first word there, trust, right at the beginning, is this word in Hebrew called batak. And I just like saying it, batak, because I think it sounds cool. And it means this: it means to have confidence in something. So really, another way to read verse 5 in this verse is to say this: be confident enough in Jesus to give him everything and stop trying to control the outcomes. And I think that's really, really strong. Be confident in Jesus and let him direct your life. See, I think we spend an insane amount of time trying to control things that are completely out of our control, which makes sense because trust is hard and every single one of us has been burned by it. You probably have a list of the ways that you have been. I do. See, confidence or faith in something we can't see is really, really tough. But the challenge here is that we can have the kind of faith in God that leads us to take the risk of letting go of things and having the confidence that Jesus is there and Jesus is for us. He's not against us. He's for us. It gets even better. Verse 6 says this. It says, in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. And here's why I love this. I just think it's too perfect for this series and for today. The word ways right there is the Hebrew word derek, just like the name, and it means a metaphorical path. Metaphorical path. So if your name is Derek, I think it's funny that your name is Hiking Trail. Because your parents named you Hiking Trail. I think that's kind of funny. But verse 6 is really saying this: and all of the metaphorical trails of life, the places you go, the things you experience, acknowledge him, which means this: seek to really understand him, and he will make your literal trails straight. I think that's so good. And it's also so difficult Because the word all, it translates to the word all, like everything. All of my metaphorical trails, like my whole self, my mind, body, and soul, or as Jesus talked about it, our heart, soul, mind, and strength. Right? Our work life, our home life, our dating life, our school life, our married life, whatever that might look like, it's every single trail that we walk on in our lives. And here's the truth that I want to share with you guys this morning. I spend most of the time in my life on a very opposite trail, a very different pattern. Because I'm going to be really honest with you, it scares me to acknowledge God in the hard parts of my life. And especially when you unpack that word in Hebrew and it becomes seek to really understand him. Because it's much easier for me to write a story for God that says that he's there, which I totally, completely, 100% believe. I stake my eternal life on it, right? But the story I write is this. Maybe I'm just not important enough for him to pay attention to the details of my life. Maybe my mistakes, my desires in my parenting, my marriage, my finances, whatever that might look like, maybe all the things that I do, he's just tired of it. I feel like this. I feel like maybe he forgets me sometimes. And here's the thing. I know in my reasoning brain that he doesn't, that he can't, that he hasn't. But doesn't it feel like that sometimes? See, I fear that somehow I'm all alone, at least emotionally, if not totally. I'm all alone in life and that no one, even God, truly cares. So even when I'm surrounded by my family and my friends who I think are the best in the world, and I love them so much, I think I'm so lucky to have them, I write stories in my head that they're just obligated to be around me and that it's only a matter of time before they figure out they can do better. Guys, sometimes I'm able to convince myself of this. If I just disappeared, all trace with me, all memory gone, that they'd be better off. And I know that's kind of dark, and maybe you didn't come to church to hear that, but that's just the truth. That's the trail that I walk on most of my days. Three years ago this week, actually, I was returning from this thing called the Crucible Project Retreat that Jim talks about a lot around here, so most of you probably heard about it. And I was fresh off figuring some stuff out. That weekend, I took a look at why I am the way that I am, why I fear abandonment from God so much, and why I often have such a low view of myself. And these retreats, Crucible, and there's one for women called Soul Beauty, that's awesome too. They're really good, and they're also not for the faint of heart, because you're looking at really difficult stuff about you. See, I knew going in that I was going to be taking a look at patterns of thought and behavior in my life, and I was terrified. To be honest with you guys, I didn't want to go. I was all signed up. We were driving down to Texas, and I was like, how do I get out of this? But I also had in the other side of my brain this idea that I don't want to miss out. If there's any chance that what I can get this weekend would transform the way that I see life and see God and see the world, then I don't want to miss it. So without spoiling anything, I got there, and we were getting prepared for the weekend. And after about an hour, here's the truth. I was furious at Jim. Like, I was so mad at him. They took my phone away. Otherwise, I would have called him and quit my job for sure. I was so mad. And so here's what I did. I planned an escape. I had an escape route all planned out. I was going to ask to use the bathroom like middle school, right? Which is when I would usually leave the classroom, do the most damage. And I would sprint towards the nearest car. And I grew up in California, so I know I would hotwire that car, and I would get out of there. And I would drive as fast as I could to the closest Chili's, and I would just eat until I was sick. And it was Chili's, so it was 5-10 minutes, right? So then I'd find a hotel, I'd sleep for 2 days, I'd drive back here, I'd go into Jim's office, and I'd quit my job. It's a foolproof plan. Because here's why. I walked in there with a ton of fear. And the fear that I walked in with that day is twofold, and I just want to unpack this. The first one was this. What if I go there and I find out that the things I struggle with aren't ever going to go away, and they might never get better? What if I'm super weird? Like, I know I'm weird. What if I'm super weird? Or people look at me and they just don't understand what I struggle with? What if I feel like a freak the entire time? Then on the other side, it was this. Second one was, what if God actually does something about all of this? Right? What if my excuses are taken away from me? What if my insecurities are answered? Or worse yet, what if I realize that most of this stuff is my fault? And if God takes away my excuses, I'm on the hook to be responsible and brave and to stop living the way I do and live in the freedom of Jesus instead. Am I like enough of a man to even handle that? But the hope was just as strong. See, the hope that I carried in that weekend was that a new trail for my life could be cut. I was hiking a few weeks ago with my 11-year-old Zane. He has this goal this summer that he's going to hike 75 miles. So I have this goal that I'm going to hike 75 miles, right? And it's awesome. We spend really good time together. We were up in Walker Ranch in Boulder, and Zane talks the entire time. He never stops talking. And he was on his 45th Avengers Infinity War theory. Have you seen the movie? He has about 200 of them. If you want to find them later, he'll give them all to you. But my mind was drifting just a little bit, at that point. And so I just kind of looked down to the side and saw the cut of the trail next to me as I was walking. And I was thinking about this. I was thinking about how somebody had to cut that trail originally. How now somebody maintains it. They come out there and make sure it's ready for me and people like me just to go out and enjoy it. At some point, it was just untouched land. And then somebody had that vision, intent, and a plan to go into that wilderness and make it something that people can interact with nature on. And I feel good about getting out there and experiencing it, but I kept thinking over and over about somebody doing thousands of hours of hard work, of hard labor to make that trail what it was. See, that's the kind of hope that I went into that weekend with, that I could reblaze this trail that the wilderness of my drifting away from God had left me on. And that I really hope that one day, for my family, for me, for those that I influence, for my friends, for the people that I'm around, that we would get to enjoy a brand new trail that my life had forged. And so I won't reveal anything about the Crucible and what they do, because it might ruin it for you if you go someday, but also there's a decent chance they'd murder me, so I'm not going to do that. But I do want you to know this. I left that weekend knowing something that might sound basic at first, but I really want you to hear it. I left knowing a fundamental truth, and it's this. I may fall short, and I may feel alone. I might still feel just like a suburban latchkey kid, like this underdog from this nasty brown town in the east part of San Diego, but I'm so much more than that. When I feel unworthy of love from God or anyone else, I found out that weekend that Jesus is still walking right beside me. He doesn't walk away from me. And because of him, I'm made whole. I'm made to be enough for the obstacles that I face, not because I'm good, but because he is. And even when I walk off of the trail and I wander and I look for a shortcut, which I do a lot, I try to control things myself again. He lets me go, but he doesn't leave. He's right there. And he's right there too when I find that right path again and get back on the right trail. And I want to illustrate this with a second thing this morning that I think of in regard to the trail of life. And it's just a story. It's a story Jesus told. And when people say, hey, who's the person in the Bible that you relate to most? I hear people say like, King David, he's strong and good, and he killed Goliath and he's the king and he's made the quarterback of the high school football team and stuff like that. That's not me. Or they're like, Samson, I get up at 4 a.m. and hit the gym every morning and I'm just awesome. I go, definitely not me. The person that I relate to most in the Bible is somebody that probably never lived. He's just a character in a story that Jesus told. And if you've been around here for the last few months at Flatirons, we just sang the song, Krista, who I love, just sang the song Reckless Love. And the song Reckless Love is written about this character. Most of us know him as the prodigal son. And I'm not going to go into a ton of detail on the story for time's sake, but I do want to look at it together briefly. And it's in Luke 15, starting in verse 11. So Jesus is telling this story, and he says this. There was a man who had 2 sons. And the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the share of property that's coming to me. And he divided his property between them. So Jesus, right off the bat, what we see here is he's speaking to a very specific culture that would know something that he's saying right here that we can't by just seeing the English. Jesus was saying to him, and everybody would have taken a deep breath, he's saying, the kid asking that from his dad is saying to his father, give me the share of the estate means I wish you were dead. Dad, go ahead and die. I'm done with you. I've had enough of you. And not only that, but to go further is I reject the ways you brought me up. The things that were important to you and the things that were important to us as a family, I don't care about any of them. Dad, go ahead and die. And then he proves his desire to break away in the next verse, 13. Jesus keeps talking. He says, not many days later, the younger son gathered all that he had and took a journey into a far country. And there he squandered his property in reckless living. And when he had spent everything, a severe famine arose in that country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him into his fields to feed pigs. And he was longing to be fed with the pods that the pigs ate, and no one gave him anything. See, I love this because Jesus cuts to the chase right away. The son takes off to live it up, and his party lasts for about half a sentence, right? Really, really short. It's here, and then it's gone, like most sin is. It's a fleeting moment that turns into regret quicker than we ever could have guessed. But I want to pack this just a little bit more. Because when Jesus says that he went to a far country, he really wants us to know that the Son went someplace where nobody would know him. And I think, and I know for me it's true, I think that we go to places where no one knows us for one of two reasons: to get away with things or to hide from things. And I think he's doing both. It says that he lived recklessly. And to go a little deeper, the Greek word there is saying that he essentially lived in a state of debauchery. And that's defined as this: excessive indulgence in sensual pleasures. So if you're wondering, does that mean that he did. And that too, and that too. Because what Jesus is trying to tell us is that he was doing whatever he felt like. He was doing whatever made him feel good right in that second. And he took that sin as far as he could think to take it. And I think if he could have found another level, he would have gone there too. And would have dug down and found another one, and he would have gone another one. He would have kept going. And I know, because I meet people every now and then who will say to me, that's all well and good, but you have no idea what I've done. And maybe that's true. I'm not going to say it's not. But I think that what Jesus is telling us in here is that he does. Because he's telling the story about this kid who knew it all. So whatever it is that you think, he did it and more. And then he invented new ways to do even more. See, Jesus understands, and he's telling us that here. This kid was living in a party that seemed like there was going to be no end to it until he goes broke at the perfectly worst time. Like right when a famine hits. And I really do think this is Jesus' way of telling us in this story that when it rains, it pours. Right? Things stack up on top of each other. Some of them we can control, like for him, reckless living, the choices he made. And some of them we can't, like a famine, the things that are done to us. But things stack up and we just feel like we can't win. I can relate to that. I think all of us can. See, I almost never meet somebody who's going through a really tough time that doesn't have this list of like 10 things that are blowing up all at the same time. It's like this. It's like my spouse left and we lost the house. Or I lost my job and the test results aren't good. It's that kind of tough. When it rains, it pours. But to top it all off, the brother, he has to go out and get a job for maybe the first time in his life. I don't know what your first job was. Mine was Kmart, and it was horrible, horrible. But he takes this job that is fine in the face of the culture that he lived in, once again, and everything that he was raised to believe. It's this job feeding pigs. So if you don't know, the Jewish culture doesn't like pigs. They don't dig on swine. They are unclean animals. They represent culturally the ultimate symbol of loathing. So in Jewish culture, if you say that somebody acted like a pig, it's really saying this. It's really saying that what they did is appalling, offensive, and repulsive. But this kid's desperate. And so he compromises all of his beliefs for the smallest chance that he can make it on his own, that he can save himself. And I think we're all wired that way a little bit. I know I am. If I have one more chance to save myself, I'm going to take it. So that's where he was. But here's the twist that ends the section. He hits this point where he really believes all he has left and his best course of action is to eat the food of the pigs. And that's really saying this: to eat the garbage that wasn't fit for any human consumption. It wasn't even fit for other animals. It was for the grossest, lowest of the low. It's trash. I was over at Sister Carmen, our partner over here across town, a couple weeks ago, and they have fresh produce that they give out to people, and it's a really awesome thing. But they were taking the rotten produce and throwing it into these bins. And as I was watching them, I asked, what is that for? And it turns out they send those things to a pig farm right here in Lafayette. So I walked over to take a look at it, and I got close enough to it that the stench nearly leveled me. We're talking like Arby's left in your car for 3 days bad. It was like that. And I started thinking about the son in this story and how that was the option that he came down to, was that stinky, disgusting, rotten produce was all that he had left. So that's what he reduced his life plan to. And while he's sitting there thinking all of this, that his life is over, that he's the lowest of the low, Jesus tells us this: he's at less than zero, and the last line in there is that nobody would give him anything. He's alone. He's abandoned. He's out on this trail by himself. So here's what happens next. It says this: but when he came to himself, he said, how many of my father's hired servants have more than enough bread, but I perish here with hunger? I will arise and go to my father, and I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me as one of your hired servants. So he comes up with a plan, probably like any of us would. And I picture it like this. I'm out of ideas. I'm caught anyways. My excuses are going to fail. I'm just going to go own up to it and see what happens. Roll the dice a little bit, right? Here's what I believe. I believe that when the pain of the impending punishment is less than the pain of the current circumstance, we become willing to face it. But the key phrase that kicks this whole thing off is when he came to himself. And what it's saying in Greek is this: when he remembered who he really was. This might be my favorite thing ever. When he remembered who he really was. He remembered that he had a home. He had a place that he had rejected and a father who cared about him and took care of him. That's when his plan started being worked on. It's really the key ingredient here, is that his head had to get right before he could get his life right. That he had to start taking mental steps to repent. And if you've been around here for any amount of time in the last couple of years, Jim's been teaching us that word repent just means to rethink everything. He had to do that. He's standing in this pig pen holding rotten produce, and he's holding on really to two possibilities. That kind of life, or remembering who he really is and remembering that his home is good, that its promises of better things are true, and then he puts one foot in front of the other one on that trail leading home. And he has this plan. I don't think it's a great plan, but he has this plan to just go get what's coming to him, to own up to his mistakes, that maybe the lies that he told and the lies that he believed, the stories that he wrote in his head about God, about his dad, about everybody else. And he gets on that trail, walking, making plans. Here's what happens in verse 20. And he arose and came to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and felt compassion and ran and embraced him and kissed him. The father leaves his mansion and he jumps onto the same trail that his son's walking on. And I really believe this. I believe this to tell us thousands of years later that no matter how far we've drifted in our mind and heart, and no matter how many stories we've written for God or anyone else, that he is in our pain, that he is with us at our worst, and that he will meet us in these places that we fear he's mad at us for, or we think he's forgotten about, or that we fear he never even cared about in the first place. So the thing is, in this story, the father never changed his mind about his son. He never rethought the sonship of his son. He never disowned him. And I really do believe this. On this trail of life, for you and me, God doesn't change his mind about us either. The father also doesn't let the son tell him his excuses or his story. So he gets ready to probably just start talking and tell him this stuff, and the father cuts him off and just embraces him in his brokenness and tells him that it's going to be okay. And probably it's going to be fragile, the relationship's going to be damaged, and it's probably going to look a little different around home than it used to, but it's going to be okay. To take this all full circle, when I got home from Crucible 3 years ago, I wasn't fixed. I looked at these parts of my life and my fear of abandonment and all this stuff, and I wasn't fixed. And I'd tell you this honestly, that some of my worst moments have come on the heels of the breakthroughs that I experienced that weekend. See, I have insecurities around who I am, how other people view me and see me, and they led me at times into arguments, at least one famous meltdown that my friends won't let me forget, and a ton of shame. But here's the truth. It's also led to grace and growth and perspective, and most of the time out of those same arguments and meltdowns. See, I received tools that weekend to fight against feeling like a forgotten latchkey kid that nobody would be bothered with, and instead to embrace something different, and that's hope. The hope I carry on this trail is the same hope that the younger brother did on his, and it's this, that as I remember who I really am, a child of God, ransomed from my fear and my insecurity by the death and resurrection of Jesus, I'm not perfect, but I'm stumbling towards grace, and I can navigate this trail with confidence in Jesus that leads to some confidence in myself. I don't have it figured out, and I'm a slow learner, but I'm learning day by day. I remember these things sometimes when I'm at my best. Our reworked Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Verse 5, I'm confident enough in Jesus to give him everything and to stop trying to control the outcomes. And verse 6, in my metaphorical trails of life, I seek to really understand him, and he makes my literal trails straight. Here's how I want to close our time today. I just want to invite you for a moment into the headspace of the younger brother, of the son at his worst. And maybe you're on a trail of fear. Maybe you walk in here today and that's the trail you walk. And it's one of fear or worry. And Jim reminded me that worry is just fear that we haven't given up yet. Maybe you are on a trail of hope and you're so glad that you are, but you can still remember what you had to navigate to get there. No matter what, no matter where you are, I just want to invite you for a moment into that headspace of him at his worst. I just want to ask you, do any of these fit what you struggle with? Maybe you're just tired of your life. Maybe you have relationships that are in disarray. Maybe your life is what you would describe as a wreck. You hate parts of yourself and you've convinced yourself that that's all you are anymore. Maybe terrible things just keep stacking up on top of each other and you feel like you're buried. When it rains, it pours. Maybe you chose some, maybe some were chosen for you, but they're there. So maybe you think this, what if I just disappeared? And maybe like me, it's just a fantasy somewhere in the darkest places in your heart and mind, but it's there. Maybe you think I can go where nobody knows me. Nobody has any expectations, high or low, on me, and I can just hide. Maybe you're writing a story for God about yourself, telling him that he doesn't care, that nobody would care. Nobody cares about you, so why would he? He forgot you anyways. Maybe you think life would just be easier if I go somewhere where I can get away with things, or I can hide from things, and I can build some kind of new life. But here's my hope for today. Because maybe, and just maybe, you're here and you're thinking, this life that I've chosen is awful. Or these things that somebody else chose for me are awful. And I have no idea what I'm going to do about it. It feels like it's too late. I can't go back. But here's my hope. Maybe you're remembering who you really are. Maybe it's slow, but you're remembering and you're coming back to who you really are. And I just want to ask you this morning, if you're willing to take a different and difficult, painful look at your own heart. Because it's not whether you're good or bad, whether you do the right things or don't. It's not about whether you're super spiritual or not. It's about authentically searching your own spirit, your own younger brother, the son's spirit. Angry, rebellious, sad, unfocused, feeling unloved, feeling justified to do whatever you want because life can't get worse. But maybe you're starting to realize it doesn't have to be so bad. It doesn't have to be so hard. Maybe you're starting to realize that deep down who you are is good, not because you're good, but because Jesus makes you good. And maybe you're starting to realize that God never forgot you. Maybe you forgot this stuff. Maybe you forgot who you really are, but he didn't. And you're starting to realize you're on this trail and you're walking and you're remembering who you really are. To do that, you have to let go of the lies that are in your head, these harmful ideas that we hold on to. And you have to ask this, what does Jesus think of me? What does Jesus have to say about me? Because I want you to hear this today. God isn't done with you. He doesn't hate you, and he isn't punishing you. See, grace is the opposite of this idea of karma. We, because of Jesus, get what we don't deserve, and we get what we can't earn. It's the message of who Jesus is, and it slowly changes us, even when the world is still scary and life still hurts. See, on this trail of life, we can have confidence in God, to seek to really understand him instead of telling him what the story is. And our hike becomes a straight trail. It's still difficult, right? It's still in the wild, but the trail is cut, and it's the right trail home. It leads us back to this eager Father who never gave up any hope in us. And even though as we follow it, the obstacles that we face along the trail are still really real. There's still steep inclines and sudden drop-offs that are terrifying. But we know, like I learned, that even when we walk off the trail and even when we wander and even when we try to control the outcomes, he is still right there beside us every step of the way, and we remember who we really are. Let's pray. God, I am so thankful that in Jesus we can be confident in who you really are. God, you are a God that never gives up hope on us. God, you never give up the hope that we can come stumbling down that trail, the same trail that we walk on, unsure what kind of things we face ahead of us. But God, as we, in this room this morning, experience this opportunity, God, to remember who we really are because of Jesus. We are sons and daughters of you. God, we have been ransomed from our fear and insecurity, from our sin, through the death and resurrection of Jesus. And because of that, we can wake up to the fact of who we really are. We can remember that you are a loving Father who waits and jumps on that trail and runs towards us and scoops us up and embraces us even at our worst. And God, I'm thankful this morning that we can remember that we have you on every metaphorical trail and every literal trail that we walk through in life. That because of you, our paths can be made straight, and even when life hurts and stuff doesn't make sense, we can still see where we're going, and it's just towards you. God, I love you. I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Let's stand and let's sing this together. Who am I that the highest King would welcome me? I was lost, but he brought me in. Oh, his love for me. Oh, his love for me. Who the sun sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am. Free at last, he has ransomed me, his grace runs deep. While I was a slave to sin, Jesus died for me. Yes, he died for me. Who the sun sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God, yes I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. No, I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. Oh, I am who you say I am. Who the sun sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God, yes I am. Sing it out. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God, yes I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. Let's all sing this together. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am.
Awesome. Great morning together. Great morning. If you need prayer for anything, we have a prayer team down front. They're awesome. Make your way forward. It's offering buckets by the door. We hope you have a great week. We'll see y'all next time.